Hello, everyone. Welcome to our TOEFL listening session. Based on the audio passage you just heard, we are going to break down a fascinating lecture about marine life. Preparing for these questions requires a sharp ear for the main idea and specific details. So, let's get ready to master this together. Now, let's dive into the analysis of our text. Pause 1 second. If you want to keep improving your score, make sure to follow my TOEFL for more daily practice and expert tips. Pause 2 seconds.
I wanted to briefly discuss a fascinating recent study in marine biology concerning coral reefs. Researchers discovered that certain types of algae, which live in a symbiotic relationship with coral, can significantly increase the coral's resistance to rising ocean temperatures. This finding is crucial because warming waters are the primary cause of coral bleaching, a phenomenon that kills reefs. The implication is that we might be able to help vulnerable reefs survive by introducing these more heat-tolerant algae. This offers a potential strategy against climate change.
Now that you have listened to the recording, please choose the best response. I want to briefly discuss a fascinating recent study in marine biology concerning coral reefs. In this opening sentence, the professor sets the stage by mentioning a fascinating recent study. This is a huge signal. Whenever you hear about a study or research, pay close attention, because that is usually the main topic. She specifies the field as marine biology and identifies the subject as coral reefs. This tells us exactly what the rest of the talk will focus on. Pause. 2 seconds. Researchers discovered that certain types of algae, which live in a symbiotic relationship with coral, can significantly increase the coral's resistance to rising ocean temperatures. Here is the core finding. The professor explains a symbiotic relationship between algae and coral. The key takeaway is how these algae can increase the coral's resistance. Resistance to what? To rising ocean temperatures. This sentence connects the biological players to the environmental problem, which is a classic TOEFL structure. Pause 2 seconds. This finding is crucial because warming waters are the primary cause of coral bleaching, a phenomenon that kills reefs. The professor uses the word crucial to emphasize the importance of the study. She identifies warming waters as the primary cause of a major problem called coral bleaching. Understanding this cause and effect relationship is vital for answering detailed questions later on. Pause 2 seconds. The implication is that we might be able to help vulnerable reefs survive by introducing these more heat-tolerant algae. Now we look at the potential solution. By introducing specific heat-tolerant algae, scientists hope to help vulnerable reefs survive. This highlights the practical application of the research, moving from a discovery to a possible intervention. Pause 2 seconds. This offers a potential strategy against climate change. Finally, the professor concludes by calling this a potential strategy against the broader issue of climate change. This places the specific marine study into a much larger global context, which helps summarize the entire talk. Pause 2 seconds. Let's look at the first question. We need to determine the primary focus of the entire lecture. What is the professor mainly discussing? The question asks what the professor is mainly discussing. This is a main idea question. We need to look at the big picture. In the very first sentence, the professor mentions a study about coral reefs. A great test-taking tip is to listen for the introductory sentence, because it almost always contains the answer to the main idea question. Pause. 1 second. Let's evaluate option A together, the main causes of climate change. This option focuses on the main causes of climate change. While climate change is mentioned at the very end, the whole talk isn't about its causes. It's about a specific study on coral. Therefore, this is too broad and incorrect. Pause 1 second. Now, let's take a closer look at option B, a new species of marine algae. Option B suggests the topic is a new species. Although the professor talks about certain types of algae, she doesn't say they are a new species. She focuses on their role in helping coral, not the discovery of the algae themselves. This makes it incorrect. Pause. 1 second. Next, we'll examine option C, the general life cycle of coral. This option mentions the life cycle of coral, However, the lecture doesn't explain how coral grows or reproduces over time. It focuses on a specific threat and a specific study. So, this choice is incorrect. Pause 1 second. Now, let's take a closer look at option D, a study about coral reef survival. This option mentions a study and survival. This matches perfectly with the first sentence where the professor introduces a study and later discusses how it helps reefs survive. This covers the entire lecture's scope. This option is correct. Pause 1 second. The correct answer is D because the key expressions in the text directly match this option, while the other choices either provide incomplete information or clearly contradict the passage. Pause 5 seconds. Now, let's move on to the second question. This one requires us to find a specific detail about the relationship between the organisms. According to the talk, how might the algae help coral reefs? This question asks how the algae help the reefs. We need to find the specific mechanism mentioned. The professor explicitly states that the algae increase the coral's resistance to heat. When you see a how question, look for words that describe a function or a method. Pause 1 second. Let's evaluate option A together. By cooling the surrounding ocean water. Option A says the algae are cooling the water. This is a common trap. While the water is warming, the algae don't actually change the temperature of the ocean itself. They just help the coral handle the heat better. This is incorrect. Pause 1 second. Next, we'll examine option B. By protecting them from high temperatures. This option says the algae are protecting them from high temperatures. This perfectly reflects increase the coral's resistance to rising ocean temperatures. It summarizes the benefit accurately. This is correct. Pause 1 second. Let's move on to option C by providing them with more nutrients. Option C talks about nutrients. While many symbiotic algae do provide nutrients, the professor does not mention nutrients in this specific lecture. You must answer based only on what was said. Therefore, this is incorrect. Pause 1 second. Here's option D. Let's break it down by fighting off ocean predators. This option suggests the algae are fighting off predators. Predators were never mentioned in the talk. The only threat discussed was temperature. This is incorrect. Pause 1 second. The correct choice should be marked as B because the context of the passage supports only this option. The other choices involve surface level reading or misinterpretation. Pause 5 seconds.